So hi, I'm here with my friend David Gross. David's a very fine classical pianist and also teaches at Furman where I teach, so we're also colleagues. And we've traded some lessons in the past, which was very interesting, very helpful to me. And I just asked David to have a brief conversation with me. And so hi David, how are you tonight?
Hi Keith, I'm doing well. It's great to be here and talk about this topic.
Thanks so much for doing it.
Yeah,
So,
pleasure.
so I know your background somewhat, but can you say just a little bit about your background, your training?
Yeah, certainly. I started when I was at age 6, and then I had lessons all through my childhood and adolescence, and I went to college and conservatories, but the training was always classical. And in my undergrad, actually, I had a teacher who was a great fan of jazz. He was a classical pianist, but you could do some chord voicings and whatnot. And he was always quite dismayed that some of us classical players wouldn't even be able to sort of harmonize a simple tune and so forth, to play something that wasn't fixated on a page.
Sure.
And so he tried to get us to play a little bit in simple 3-part voicing. Just he said 3 voices is best if you learn how to do, say, a folk tune or something like that. And he was very good at that, and he showed me a few things, but it was not an ongoing sort of training. So I tried a little bit, and I don't think I have a natural talent at that, right? So it felt sort of difficult.
Yeah.
But he was also a great fan of jazz, and he got us to listen to people like Bill Evans, Earl Garner, and Art Tatum. Those, I think, were his greatest sort of heroes in the jazz world.
Yeah.
And Oscar Peterson also. And I got really lucky when I was a student in Munich. I got to attend the Oscar Peterson concert.
Oh, nice.
And it was totally amazing because it was clear that the guy was a great pianist.
Yeah.
And also, people always said that he practiced all the time, which I believe.
Yeah.
But that was the extent of my training in terms of jazz, which there was none. Right? It was just like I got a little bit exposed to listening.
Sure. Well, and as long as I've known you, I didn't know some of those things that you just told me.
So great. So turn on the mic and there we go.
So we turn on the mic and we start talking about it, right? No, so that's very interesting because my next question was going to be how you got exposed to jazz and how did you become interested in jazz?
Yeah. So back in those days, as an undergrad, I bought some vinyls of Oscar Peterson and so forth, but in terms of having any kind of understanding of how to listen to a jazz tune, I really didn't have any. And of course, the more you know about something, the more you appreciate it.
Sure.
Or the deeper you appreciate it.
Sure.
And I learned about that only much later, actually with you.
Okay.
And
good.
listen for the head and whatever choruses, and you
how
listen for the chord changes, how they come back, and so forth.
Absolutely. Yeah, this music is, you have to listen to it if you want to learn how to play it. And you have to know how, like you said, you have to know how to listen to it, right? So is that why you wanted to get together with me?
Well, I had always been sort of regretful that playing non-composed music, in any style, whether it's classical or jazz or so, that was not part of my training. I was very sad about that, and I still think it's a failing in any kind of system if people learn only to play exactly all the dots on the page.
Right.
And so when we met, it was a wonderful opportunity that came out of nowhere. Because I think you asked if you could take lessons with me because you wanted to play Bach. And
Absolutely,
I thought, wait a minute, rather than just teach him a lesson on Bach, how would I ask if we could trade lessons? That's how it came. And so I had heard you play a few times, of course, and it was just a wonderful opportunity that sprung up by chance.
Good, yeah, for me too. It was great. I mean, all that time we spent working on that classical music, which really helped me a lot, helped my playing a lot, and it's very interesting too. And I enjoy it still. When I have a chance to do it.
I'm glad.
So I hope we can get together some more at some point. It's been kind of crazy the last few years, as we all know.
That's true. It's true.
But I hope we can. I hope we can do some of that again. Yeah. So, what do you find is difficult? What's different about playing jazz than playing classical music? Can you talk about that at all?
Okay, of course. So the first thing, if you grow up learning the notes on the page, and being held accountable for each one of them, and it has to be perfect as much as we can. Then making up even 2 notes in a row that are not on the page
Yes.
is really hard.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if you try to play jazz or do anything else.
Right.
And I find myself, even to this day, that if I just sit down and like, okay, play something,
Yeah.
it's really hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard. And on top of that, if you want it to sound like jazz, that's even harder because I didn't grow up with it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not in my blood, so to speak.
Right.
And until I studied with that professor in undergrad who had his students listen to some jazz because he wanted to open our horizon somewhat, I had also not listened to jazz on my own. It was not only that I didn't play it, but I also had very little exposure. And to get into this different sort of rhythmic feel,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's very difficult. I remember in one of the earlier lessons, you were a little frustrated. You said, just don't try to swing the notes. Just don't. Just don't. Just play them straight.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of the things that I teach, I mean, this is one of my missions, is to teach people, like you said, that this is a part of the normal music teaching, right?
It should be.
Curriculums, and I think it should be, and that's
I think
part
it
of my
should be.
mission, especially with young students now. That's one of the reasons I'm doing this podcast is my mission is to help young students find the way that they can learn some of this music.
Oh.
And it doesn't have to be jazz per se. I mean, jazz is a style of music, right? But the things that I'm talking about, a lot of them, I mean, some of them are particular to jazz, but a lot of them are just universal principles of music, right? Like the harmony, the things we talked about, and the rhythmic subdivisions, syncopation, all those things we talked about. It applies, it doesn't matter what style it is,
Well, speaking of harmony,
Yeah.
so when we would sit there, and we're not even talking about improvising, but you sit there and you look at the jazz chart,
Right?
and you say, all right, these are the notes that are given, right? That's the chord symbol and so forth. If you play only that, it's not going to really be very satisfying. So you have to add to it, right?
Right.
Like the upper structure notes and all.
Right.
And the moment you start with that, and you introduced me to this, the moment you start with that, you have so many options, and many of them are pretty ugly. And then all of a sudden, you're really put in this position where you have to judge for yourself
Yeah.
what sounds good, what doesn't sound so good, what's the voice leading. You listen much differently. You're forced to listen in a much deeper way, because you get to choose to a certain degree what notes to play.
Absolutely.
It's not like, if the composer wrote the notes, there's no choice. You play
Right.
those.
Sure, right.
And whether you hear what's going on or not, that's yet another question.
Yeah.
But when you harmonize a jazz tune, well, there are some rules,
Yeah.
and like voice leading rules
Yeah.
and so forth, they apply too.
Sure, absolutely, right.
But just the fact that we sat there and like, okay, so where's the ninth, and here's 13, a flat 13, and
Right.
those are your choices,
Right,
and
right.
what do you like? Well, this doesn't sound good because then you have that funny ninth,
Right, right.
like a minor 9, and,
Right.
and you don't want that, and it helped me a lot with listening.
Yeah, good.
And also in classical.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
when I practice my classical pieces, I'm like, oh yeah, I hear these things that before I didn't hear them.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah.
very useful.
Good, good. I'm glad you find it useful, yeah. So anyway, well, I hope I helped you as a teacher with that. I hope
Absolutely.
I helped you
Well,
with that.
like I said,
yeah.
it kicked off
Yeah.
a kind of development that
Yeah.
I'm, I wish it had been 40 years
Yeah,
earlier.
yeah. And for me, same with classical. For me, I wish I'd had that kind of training when I was young. I mean, some of the great jazz pianists, Keith Jarrett, you mentioned Hosker, Bill
Yeah.
Evans. I mean, they were all great classical
start from
pianists as well.
classical, that's right.
I mean, especially I think Keith especially recorded lots of classical
He
albums.
did, yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's important. I wish I'd had that training when I was
And those
younger,
folks are
too.
great pianists,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
in terms of
Exactly.
playing the instrument.
Exactly right.
They
exactly.
really knew what they
Right.
were doing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, well, this has been great. I really appreciate
Wonderful.
your taking the time to do
Yeah,
this.
absolutely.
I hope
My
that
pleasure.
in the future, maybe we'll sit down and have a longer conversation, record that as well, do a longer interview
Absolutely.
as well.
Would be my pleasure.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much.
Thank you, Keith.
All right.
Yeah, great.